Always wear safety glasses when working in the shop.
The safety glasses are over here by the sink in the white cabinet here. Make sure that you are grabbing a pair anytime you're working with tools or working near somebody who has the tools. If you are wearing glasses like I do, they should still fit over the top. And if you require a different pair, come see one of us and we will get you a pair that might fit better over your glasses. Or if you've got a smaller head and these feel too big, we can get you a pair that are a little bit smaller.
Wearing safety glasses means that when you are working, they are on your face. Safety glasses should not be on the top of your head while you are working. They do not do much good up there. And if you take your safety glasses off, you do not set them down on the lens. You always set your safety glasses down when you're not working on the upper frame or the blue portion, which is exactly where we place them when we set them back in the safety glasses cabinet. At the end of the day, all the safety glasses need to be placed back exactly where they belong, sitting correctly, or we will not get to be dismissed yet.
Report all accidents, injuries, and broken equipment to the instructor immediately.
Any accident we need to know about. When you tell us about an accident, we have first aid kit and safety materials and health materials up here in Poulos' aid kit. This includes gauze, bandages, disinfectants, cotton swabs, everything we need to make sure that you are safe if there is an accident or injury to occur in the shop.
We've both been trained in first aid, and so we are going to do our absolute best to keep you safe and to minimize any complications that may happen.
Only use tools for the job that they were designed for.
In the tool cabinet and throughout the shop, we've got tools that are designed for specific purposes. Please make sure that you're using those tools the way they were intended. What we don't want to do is grab, say, a chisel and try to use it as a screwdriver, or
A tri-square is not a hammer.
okay. Please make sure you're using them for the purpose that they were designed for, and that way it allows us to work safely and it keeps us from damaging the tools.
Before you use a tool, be sure that it is clean and in good condition. A chisel like this that has a damaged edge is not going to be safe or efficient for you to use in the shop. When you grab the tool, it is your job to look at the tool and make sure that it is ready to be used.
Sometimes you'll find the tools not only with a damaged edge, but they may be dirty, they may be covered in hot glue or something that maybe dripped out of the hot glue gun when people were working on a project. So make sure that it's clean and in good condition and that the blades are going to be efficient when we're trying to do some cutting or carving or something like that. Be sure that the handles on all tools are fitted properly and securely before using the tool.
Example of a tool that has a handle that needs to be fitted is a hammer.
We want to make sure that the hammerhead, the metal part of the hammer, is not loose with the handle. So make sure that all the tools, when you pull them out of the tool cabinet, have a handle that is nice and secure, fitted tightly. If you see something that isn't, please let us know so that we can get it repaired or replaced very quickly and keep any injuries from happening.
When carrying sharp and pointed tools, carry them with the point or edge facing towards the floor.
If you come over to the tool cabinet and you're grabbing a saw, we don't want you to carry the saw this way. Even though the sharp pointed part of the saw is facing towards the floor, you are creating a poking hazard when you're walking towards somebody. So make sure that when you're carrying the saws, you're carrying them down at your side. Not swinging, not up on your shoulder, not in front of you, but down at your side.
Another big one is the chisels. Frequently with the chisels, we see people carrying them like this or like this up here. If I was to carry a chisel up here, I would be hitting Mr. Poulos in the face. Chisels need to be carried with the point down, facing the floor, covered up, not towards anyone else or yourself. When using a tape measure, never let the tape slam back into the case.
When you're using the tape measure, we don't want the tape measure to allow for it to slam back into the case. If we do that, the tip of the tape measure can actually break off, and the tape measure will spool inside of the tape case itself, and we won't be able to use it any longer. Damaging the end of this causes problems because it makes it hard to hook onto a board also when we're trying to do measuring later on.
Chisels should always be used in a direction away from the user.
When you're using a chisel, we only want to hit the chisels with a mallet. We do not want to hit the hammer on the back of the chisel because it can damage the handle. When I'm using the chisel, I do not want to hit towards myself. I always want to work in a direction that's going away from me. And if you have somebody who is near you, we want to make sure that if that chisel slips, it can't get them either. So when we're working with the chisel, we don't want to go in any direction that could go and hit ourselves or somebody else. Keep tools away from the edge of workbenches when you set them down.
When you're working a lot, sometimes you're going to measure, then you're going to want to start cutting, and you're going to start moving, and you're going to forget that your tools are slowly being pushed to the edge of the table. Then you're going to come up, you're going to do something else, your tool's going to fall, and that is how we damage our tools. And if it's a measuring tool, then you just ruined that tool.
So make sure that when you're working, you're keeping things pushed towards the center of the table. Remember that when you're done with something, it should always go back where it belongs rather than sitting out on the table. But if we're still continuing to use that, make sure that we just keep those things close towards the center of the table rather than the edges where they can get bumped and fall off the table.
Layout and measuring tools are precision tools. Care should be taken not to drop them or hit other objects with them.
Layout and measuring tools can be things like the tape measure, different squares that we might be using, or even the levels, plumb sticks that we're using for, say, the construction class. We want to make sure that we're not hitting other things with them, that we're not dropping them, because all of these tools need to be very, very accurate in order to create our projects and have everything the best that we can possibly do when we're using these tools.
Remember, with tools like your steel squares or your tries, hitting other objects with them includes the people around you. It still damages the tools, and it's unsafe.
Keep all vices closed when not in use. So when you're using the vices to clamp your projects, we want to be able to hold our projects for cutting and drilling and other operations that we might be doing in the shop. But when we're done, we want to make sure that we get that vise closed all the way. So if the vise is open, it creates a problem with people walking past where they can walk into it. So we want to make sure that we get that vise closed all the way, but we also want to make sure that the handles aren't sticking out. So once you get the vise closed all the way, back it up just enough to have that handle straight up and down. Now we don't have something sticking out where we can walk into it and get ourselves hurt.
When you're in class, don't play with the vise. Please leave it closed. Don't play here. Don't do this. Don't grab it. Leave the vise just the way it is. It's for your safety and so that we don't disrupt the learning environment of the classroom. When you finish using a tool or piece of equipment, put it back where it belongs.
If we're leaving tools out and we're no longer using them, it creates a cluttered workspace and things are likely to get knocked off the table or bumped into. And when you have a saw, you've got a sharp blade here and we don't want people bumping into it. We don't want that thing here on the table where people are likely to get hurt. So we want to make sure that when we're done with something, we get it put away. It also makes it easier for people to find it when they need that tool.
Every tool has a home. When you look in the tool chest, we can see hammers, different types of saws, planes, measuring equipment, and so forth throughout. So when you put it away, just don't put it away anywhere. Make sure you put it back where its home is, like Mr. P said, so somebody else can find it.
If we're putting stuff away when we're done with it, It also makes cleanup way easier at the end of the class period or at the end of Club Sawdust. So we want to get those things put away as soon as we're done using them. Stay away from other people when they are using equipment.
When we're working in the shop, we can have up to 5 people at a table, and that's a very small workspace sometimes. So when you're working, be aware who's around you, and on the other end, don't let other people distract you. When you're working, I don't want to hit Mr. P with the backside of my hammer. So he's going to give me space, and he's going to know that he needs to stay away from me while he's working. And when it goes the other way and he's working, I'm going to stay away from him and give him space.
Work at a safe speed and concentrate on what you are working on.
Very often in the shop, especially when we see people using saws, they tend to work very, very quickly. They come in, they get started, and they want to go as fast as they can. And they can't talk and they can't see what they're doing. But when you're sawing, you want to concentrate, look at what you're working on, and focus on doing things the right way and being slow and steady with what you do. And this will lead to doing better in the shop, providing a safer environment for those around us, and being better students. Keep hands away from the blades of saws as you cut.
When you are cutting, when you're starting your cut, we don't want your fingers close to the blade. As you're cutting through, we don't want your hands near the blades either. When you have the piece that's ready to fall, we don't want you or somebody else to try to hold that piece. We can just let the piece fall to the floor so that nobody's hands are anywhere near that sharp blade while we're cutting. So please keep your fingers away from the blades. Don't let your hands get too close. We don't want any accidents with cut fingers or cut hands because they were too close to the blades.
You're not helping anyone if you get injured. Clamp the workpiece to hold it in place while working on it.
When you are doing any cutting or drilling, we want to make sure that you have your piece of wood clamped into a vise or clamped to the table so that it's not moving around as you're trying to cut. If we try to cut without it being in the vise, that board can move around and around and around. And so we want to make sure that we are not having that board slip. The vices are here to clamp our projects. We can clamp that project in nice and tight, and then we can have our hands free and away from the stuff as we're trying to work on it. This provides a nice stable base for our materials so that they do not get moved around while we're working.
Not all projects in the shop can be put in a table vise. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't use your hand, that you should use your hands. We still have different kinds of clamps to make sure that you are working in a safe and efficient manner.